things out and like have our opinions out there, which has actually been kind of like both refreshing and a little like it did give me a little bit of anxiety at one point. I don't know if you felt the same way.
Well, yeah, but I have anxiety about everything.
Right, but like, have you had anxiety specifically about like I thought about this the other day because I do all the editing for the videos.
I feel like I talked to you about this.
Yeah, like I do all the editing for the videos, and then I splice up the videos, and then I'm making reels, and then I'm putting them on Instagram and TikTok and all that stuff. But like, once I get in the motions of it, it just feels like grunt work. It feels like I just have to do it, I have to put it out, I have to do it. And by the end of the day, like I don't really pay attention to like who saw it, who commented, who did.
Yeah.
It just like goes into like a thing. But every once in a while, especially when I'm on YouTube and I'm uploading them on YouTube, it'll tell me the count. It'll tell me like how many videos I have in the channel.
Yeah.
And it'll be like 50 videos, and I'm like, holy crap. There's like
so
50
much
videos. Long videos, long form videos of me just expressing my opinion.
Yeah.
Like at any point in time, anybody could press me about that. Or, online or whatever, which I may or may not pay attention to. But just the idea of like, holy shit, like my opinion is there for people to dissect and criticize because now it's public. And like that kind of gave me a little bit of anxiety.
I feel like I talked to you about this.
Yeah, we did.
Because I had that moment at like episode 2. Mm-hmm. Because it was like the first time that I like sat like before, like sometimes I just watch like parts of the video like at one moment, and then I'll be like, all right, that's enough. And then I have to move on to like the next thing, and then I'll finish it some other time. So I'm very like scattered. But I had like that moment where I was like, I'm doing this, and like, we have to share it and stuff like that. And I want people to watch it, and I want all of that. But I was watching it. I was sitting on my couch and I was watching it, and I said something. And I was like, oh, I didn't like that. Yeah. And like, I didn't like that. I was like, I mean, it wasn't anything like huge, but I was like, I mean, I would rather not, like, it didn't land the way it was supposed to. And I don't like that it's out there and it's totally like immortalized. Yeah. And I was like, because then I was thinking like, okay, well, why don't I like it? I don't like it because I think people are going to perceive it in this way. And that's not the way that I meant it. But it's the way that it came off for sure.
Right.
And so then I was like, that gives people this idea of me. And then I was like, there's going to be people out there that are going to have a perception of me.
Yes.
They're going to perceive me.
Yeah.
And like, it literally doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter like who you actually are, because whoever you are when you're online, like that's who you are to those people. You know what I mean? And I had this like crisis where I was like, I don't know if I want to do this.
Yeah.
And I started like the next like episode or 2, I was so self-conscious and like overthinking everything that I was saying and every comeback that I had, because I was like, well, I don't want to, you know what I mean? Like it's so easy to my roommate is texting me.
Like self-criticize?
Well, no, hold on. Sometimes you don't have a roommate. Well, I guess you do. Yeah. But we have to like lock the door. You know what I mean? Like we make sure to lock the door. Like I don't like to have like only one lock when I'm home. Yeah. But sometimes I'll be I'll be like, well, I want to go shower. Mm-hmm. What if she gets home when I'm in the shower? But also if she doesn't, then I just have an unlocked door.
Well, half unlocked door.
It's sure, but like, like there's a reason why one of the locks is there, whatever.
A non-dead bolted door.
What I was saying was, I had this like moment of being like, oh, these people are gonna have opinions about me, and like I'm the kind of person that cares a lot about what other people think and the way that people perceive me. Like I've always been like that. I've always had like a lot of anxiety since I was like a kid, and that's why I had this like need to be like perfect, and by perfect I mean to be like so like to not be like a bother, like to not tick off people and to not like upset people and like to just like people please like crazy. So when I started like watching those clips, I was like, holy shit, like people are gonna have an opinion of me that I also cannot control. Like I can sit there all day and like explain it away and be like, no, that's not, or like, no, I disagree or whatever, but it doesn't fucking matter. Like there might be people that they meet you and they're like, oh yeah, like I think that was just like a misunderstanding. But there's also going to be people that are going to be like, no, I think I think you meant what you said, or no, I think this is who you are, or
you
whatever.
come off as arrogant, or you come off as like too assertive, or whatever.
And it was like a moment where you're like, oh, I have no control over that. Like, I have no control. I can try. Like, you can do whatever you want, and you can say and like try to repair it or whatever. But at the end of the day, like, you have absolutely no control over how people like view you and their opinions of you and who they think you are. And I was like, so that's debilitating.
Yeah, I think there's definitely like an extra, I mean, when you think of it, when it comes to a podcast with you being filmed and it being recorded and it being posted online, like that's something that it's always there and so many people can see it. But then I also think of that, like, I feel like that's where a lot of anxiety comes from, just with like social anxiety, because I think of even just like everyday interactions. And I think of the fact that like, oh, well, I did this one thing that might kind of be interpreted like this. And that might be the only interaction that somebody has with me. So they might think that that's just who I am. That's what I am, you know, and they might just have this idea of me. That like, that's not my overall, and I can try to sit there and explain it, but they already have that experience now.
Right. And I remember around that time, like we've been hiring a bunch of new people at work, because they're always hiring. And I remember one of my coworkers, they were like, oh, what was your first impression of me? And I was like, well, I didn't realize that you worked there at the time. And like, I told him, but whatever. I was like, oh, I thought you were like very quiet. And they're not, they're like, whatever. And then I was like, well, what was your first impression of me? Because the first time I like technically that they saw me, I kind of ignored them because I didn't know that they were like working there. Like I thought they were just a customer and I was there just like shopping. And they were like, oh, I thought you were like a college party girl. And I was like, it took me like so aback because I love partying, don't get me wrong. But I have never, like, nobody has ever described me at that. And I don't think anybody would, like, necessarily note that as, like,
I wouldn't have
a
said
characteristic of mine, you know, or, like, a part of, like, nobody would describe me like that. And when they said that, I was like, what? But again, like, I was like, that is crazy. Like, the things, like, the way that people can perceive you just from like a couple of moments and like the idea of you that they can like have in their minds just from like one or two interactions, that I was like, oh my God. And then you like, I get self-conscious and I'm like, well, how do I like deconstruct that? Like, how do I like kind of like bring that back, like reel it in so that I change that perspective? But then I'm like, well, I don't actually want to do that because like one, like once they get to know me, they get to know me, and like, you know, that's whatever. And also like, who cares? But I'm the kind of person that, like I get really anxious and I try, like, I just am so concerned by the way that people perceive me that at the beginning I was like, it's going to be hard. I'm going to talk about this in therapy a lot.
And the other thing that I started thinking about when you brought it up was like, how do you stop that anxiety or the idea of other people's perception of you from changing who you are? Because it can go both ways. It can be this idea of like
that is much more interesting.
Being worried of like, oh, people think I'm this because of what I said, so I'm gonna try to reel that in. Or the opposite, like let's talk about like Cardi B, right? With like, let's say as soon as she did like I don't know if that was like a thing that she always did, or maybe she did it
seems
once.
Quirky like that.
Yeah, I'm sure. But I'm just saying, like,
she's really
I'm just
funny.
using that as an example.
But
like, let's say she did that once, and people were like, "Oh, that's so cool!" That, and then all of a sudden be like, "Okay, this is gonna be my thing."
Sure.
And then turning into that, like, oh, well, they like when I do like all these funny noises or something, or like,
I
just
see
like,
what you're saying.
like all these people are commenting on like this thing that they like about, so like, and like feeding into that.
Right. I kind of had that a little bit because since I just started this TikTok for the podcast, and it's been blowing up on some things, and it primarily has been the Coco and Encanto stuff, and I was all like, maybe we should talk more about like Disney movies. I've said that like once or twice, I was all like, I had to catch myself because I was like, I mean, I guess we could if that's what we want to talk about, but also I was like, but no, just talk about whatever the fuck you want to talk about. You know what I mean? But
I feel like it's a little bit easier to do though too if you're like actually managing like social media and stuff like that, and you have like something to drive you to it. Like if you have a podcast or if you have a YouTube channel and stuff like that, obviously at the end of the day, like you're concerned with getting views. Like that's your job, and that's something that you're trying to push forward. So I feel like I don't know if it's necessarily like changing who you are as opposed to like, oh, knowing like what my audience wants and how I can incorporate it into who I am already.
It's a fine line, I think.
I think it is a fine line. But